Hey there, welcome to the stream. I'm Josh Rushing. I'm hosting for Femi OK, who's out today and lucky enough to do it. If you're watching this on YouTube, check this out. See that over there? That's like a live discussion that's happening, and we actually have a stream producer who's in there waiting to get your comments to me so that they can be part of the show today. And for the show today, we're talking about the situation with Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, in Cox's Bazaar. It is now the largest refugee camp in the world. It's approaching 1 million people, something nearly like 1 million people. And so to ease some of the pressure there, the Bangladeshi government has moved about 20,000 of these refugees out to an island called Bhasan Char. And they've really kind of pitched this as like chance for a better life. There's going to be schools and medical facilities. But a recent Human Rights Watch report has actually called it, I'm going to show you this on my computer here, an island jail in the middle of the sea. So we want to talk about this today, see what's actually happening in Bhasan Char, and I'm joined by 3 guests to do it. In studio, I'm joined by Weiwei Nu. Weiwei, can you tell us just a bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me. So
Sure.
My name is Weiwei Nu. I am a Rohingya by myself. I was born and raised in Rakhine State to a Rohingya political family. My family was deeply involved in Burmese democracy movement. My father was an elected parliamentarian in 1990 elections. Due to his involvement, my family and I were put in jail for a long-term imprisonment. We spent 7 years in prison and we were released in 2012. Since then, I become an activist. Right now, I run an organization called Women's Peace Network in Myanmar, where we promote peace and human rights in Myanmar and for the rights of the Rohingya in Myanmar.
Great. Thanks for being here, Weiwei. I really appreciate it.
course.
Nadia, will you share a bit about yourself with our audience?
Sure, thank you so much for having me. My name is Nadia Hardman, and I am a researcher in the Refugee and Migrant Rights Division of Human Rights Watch, and I supported in the production of this report on Bhasan Char. I used to live in Myanmar, and I have done some work in the Rohingya IDP camps, in the internment camps in Rakhine State.
Great, great. And then Tanvir, much of our audience on Al Jazeera will know who you are already, but if you'll tell them, just in case.
I'm Tanvir Chaudhary. I'm the correspondent for Al Jazeera English in Bangladesh. And I've been covering the Rohingya news since August 25th of 2017, for almost close to 4 years now, covering the camps, the influx. So had a good repertoire with the community, made a lot of friends, and a reasonable understanding about the situation on the ground.
All right, so let's start with this video from the Bangladesh government promoting the island of Bhasan Char. Can we bring this up?
120 cluster houses, including cyclone shelters, were built, equipped with water reservoir, eco-friendly kitchen, and separate bathroom. Solar power systems are installed to ensure 24 hours electricity for the residents. Adequate schools, healthcare services, including hospitals and community clinics, have been built to support Rohingya families. Bhasan Char has been developed in a way so that the Rohingya people can improve their social life and be benefited financially. They can work in agriculture sector, fish farming and animal husbandry. It will make them economically independent.
So Nadia, it may not be Club Med in the Bay of Bengal, but it looks pretty nice on the video. However, the report that just came out says something quite different. Can you tell us what you guys found?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've interviewed over 167 Rohingya refugees, 117 of them on Bhasan Char, 50 in Cox's Bazaar, and then 30 of those ended up on Bhasan Char. So we've spoken to a lot of people, and what you see in the film, in this propaganda video, is simply not what you get. The island is not fit for purpose. Putting aside maybe for the moment the fact that it lies in the Bay of Bengal, an area subject to deadly cyclones, and now we find ourselves in the middle of a monsoon season. All that was promised in that video, access to livelihoods, fishing, husbandry, hospitals, healthcare facilities, quality education, simply has not been provided. Instead, what we see is that people were forcibly relocated in some instances, directly by finding their names on the list when they hadn't put them on there, and indirectly by being misled about the conditions. We've recorded abuses as well by security officials, restrictions on freedom of movement, children being beaten for trying to access a different block than the one that they find themselves in. And just today, I mean, we can't verify this, but I read a report today, which you may have seen, 3 children have died because of a diarrhea outbreak, a preventable disease on the island. There is a diarrhea outbreak, and many people, many thousands of people apparently are suffering, and there aren't enough medical supplies.
And your report's really kind of a rare look as to what's happening on the island, because Tanvir, you've been trying to get out there with Al Jazeera cameras for a while now. Can you tell me about that? Why you haven't been able to go?
Yeah, we've been trying for 2 years, and it's always been a promise of next month or the following 2 months later, because this permission is going to be granted by the National Security Intelligence and the Prime Minister's office. No other government bodies actually is authorized to give us permission. They never said no, that we can't go. But we've been in touch with a lot of the Rohingya refugees living in there through our contacts in the camp in Cox's Bazaar. Some of them I got to know. Now, given the benefit of that, the government does want to improve the situation for them. I don't think the government has a bad intention. They have done a lot for the community. We have to praise Bangladesh for what it has done for Rohingya refugees all throughout. Now, having said all that, the accommodation, according to the refugees, not me, I haven't seen that except for what's in the picture. Talking to a lot of the Rohingyas who are actually living there, they have no complaint with the infrastructure as per se, or the accommodation itself. What their main concern is they're isolated. They don't have they can't roam around the island. They get arrested or detained by the naval police or the local police, and they're put back in the camps again. They were promised they'll be allowed to do fishing, farming, dairy farming, etc. And also a lot of the elderly people told me that they're scared. They've never lived in an isolated island in the middle of the ocean. They're scared of tidal surge, cyclone, monsoon rain, let alone the issue of diarrhea came up, which is exactly true. It's a very preventable disease. Bangladesh came up during the 1971 with a solution, which itself is good enough to actually help people out of this misery. And one of the main concerns for these Rohingya refugees in Bhasan Char is isolation. It's a mental isolation. It's not just physical. People are used to living next to Myanmar border in Cox's Bazaar. They have an extended family system, a support mechanism. A whole ecosystem is built up based on commerce. They have shops, they have vegetable markets. They depend on each other. They even have a symbiotic relationship with the local people because they speak the same dialect of the language. They do trades. So this whole extended support system, being close to the home, gives them a confidence. They feel good. Now, a lot of them, because of the promise of better accommodation, farming, and the means of livelihood, decided that maybe it might be an option. Some were lured into there, but now most of them, they want to come back. There's been a lot of escape attempts, at least dozens or so. Many were detained in Noakhali district, which is takes about hour and a half to cross, the first mainland coastline. So there are definitely issues concerning relocation of the refugees.
So journalists can't get out there yet, but the UN recently paid a visit. We have just a bit of footage about what happened when they did. They're screaming that they can't take it anymore, that they can't live there, and they're also calling out for journalists around the world to tell their story, which I can assume if you feel that isolated, it's what I would do too. Do you know anyone who's gone out to the island?
Yeah, so I have been in contact with several of our contacts and friends and relatives. So I am receiving the similar messages that Tanya and Tundra has been explaining. It exactly like the fear, this mental kind of isolational fear and frustrations, and really mental health is a major part of it. At the same time, the inadequate livelihood conditions, like really bad livelihood conditions, whatever you have seen on the propaganda video is not simply true out there. There is no medical, effective medical care or medical assistance, as well as no educations, and also there is no other livelihood opportunities. So people are really scared and afraid of living in there, and everybody wants to escape, and there has been many more people trying to escape from the island. Then, as Chandra said, some of them have been caught up by the security forces and being detained, and we're concerned about their safety and security as well.
Wait a second, can we just pause here for a second and talk about this? Because the way they promote it, it's like they're building a new home for them. But what I'm hearing is that in that new home, you're not allowed to go to other parts of the island. You're not allowed to leave the island. You're not, it seems like they've taken their freedom of movement. And so is this a new home, or is this a detention camp? Is this a prison? What are we actually talking about here? Let's see, Nadia, jump in there.
On that point, I think the main issue, and I should say at the outset, Human Rights Watch doesn't oppose the existence of Bhasan Char for the sake of opposing it. We oppose it because the Bangladeshi authorities have reneged on their promise for an independent technical assessment that the UN has offered on a continuous basis. And so you asked this question about, what is this island? What is happening? We don't know, because there hasn't been an opportunity for an independent humanitarian assessment, nor a technical assessment to understand if the island is safe and habitable. So what you have seen are these rather orchestrated events where UN officials and members of the diplomatic community have been taken to the island and shown activities of livelihoods, and hand-picked Rohingya refugees that have been told to tell a version of the story that is not true. But then we documented, and Wei Wei and Tanvir said the same, instances of abuses, and as we've seen today, deaths because of preventable diseases. We would urge, our call is for an immediate cessation of relocation and for an independent technical assessment to take place. And if the island is deemed uninhabitable, then Rohingya refugees must be returned to Cox's Bazar, and anyone who wants to return now should be allowed to do so.
Yeah, if it's not a detention camp, I don't understand why there isn't freedom of movement.
Can I say something in this context?
Yeah, go for it.
The refugees were promised that if they don't like that, they have the right to return back. That hasn't been the case. And in bigger picture, in context to literally 1.1 million refugees settled in Cox's Bazar, the logical analysis, even one of the ex-foreign secretaries said, how much decongestion actually you're going to have by moving 100,000 people from the main camp into an isolated island? You spend millions creating logistic-filled hospital, the largest water treatment plant among any refugee camp, wastewater treatment plant, solar-run power line to distribute water. A whole bunch of infrastructure has been spent, created. It's reasonably good for a refugee camp. There's greeneries now. It used to be barren flint hills in the main camps. They start up micro-horticulture by the FAO and WFP. All this to better their life near to their homeland. Suddenly you want to take in a remote island, it just doesn't make logical sense. This island is a silted island. It's a forward naval base. Why do you want to take suddenly 100,000 people? It doesn't really decongest. There's a security threat. 100,000 people doesn't really minimize much of a threat if there is a so-called security threat.
Okay, hey, Tanvir, you brought up a bunch of things I kind of want to jump in on. I want to bring in some people from our YouTube audience. Neville Searchwell says, why can't other countries take them in? Schulte 100 says, what are people doing for money or work, or how are they surviving? Mohammed Hossein says, Bhasan Char reminds me of one of the infamous colonial-era island prisons, and nice-looking videos shouldn't detract from the fact that it's a unit for human habitation. Experts have warned against it before. Tanvir, if you say it doesn't make sense, that why they're moving people there, what do you think's really going on? And let me throw in one more thing, because you did bring in security, and we have just this morning, the foreign minister of Bangladesh was on a panel, and he mentioned security being an issue. Here, check this out.
It is high time for all of us so that we stop this sort of, jungle law up there. And secondly, my fear is, if this problem, we have around 1.1 million Rohingya, and they are hopeless, they have no future. We only provide them food 3 times a day. And these young people, there are a large number of young people, there could be pockets of radicalism. And once they become extremists, it would be a headache not only for Bangladesh or Myanmar, but the entire region.
So that was the foreign minister who just said that. You were actually on that panel this morning. I guess if one steps back and plays a little bit of devil's advocate, what's Bangladesh supposed to do? They have a million refugees who have come in at really kind of no fault of their own. Yeah. What are they supposed to do here?
So we have to remember that the problem, the issue is caused in Myanmar, and the solutions lies in Myanmar. Now, Bangladesh is carrying so much burden. We understand that. And our community is so grateful for the Bangladesh help, support, and their generosity and kindness to our people. However, the Bangladesh and all other recipients countries of the Rohingya refugees and refugee in general has international obligation to provide them safety and protections and respect their rights as refugees. And at the same time, we also have to remember these Rohingya refugees are the survivors and victims of the genocide. And, the well-being, mental health, avoiding re-traumatizations should be priority for any of this country, and we expect Bangladesh to respect that. And when it's come to the issue of Bhasan Char, if the purpose is for deconjunctions, and I think there are many countries around the world want to help Bangladesh, and they shouldn't take all the burden and address by their own. They should coordinate with many other countries and come up with better solutions than the situations now in Bhasan Char or in the camps. And knowing that the level of burden they are carrying, well, I think the best way to move forward at this point for the Bangladesh is to talk to the other countries and government and come up with a more fair solutions and better solutions for the refugees. And whether it is the resettlement or providing more assistance to the Bangladesh, or even facilitating return to Myanmar at some point when situations get better. And all of this has to work together. All the countries, the world need to work together along with Bangladesh, so that I think that will be, we Rohingya will have a better, or we'll have some relief and some justice, although we didn't have it forever. Our community has been persecuted forever. Now we take refuge in this country because we want human dignity and human rights, and we want to live as human beings. So it is the international community's responsibility to work together to fulfill that human needs for our community.
So we have a video comment from someone in our community who actually is a refugee in Cox's Bazaar, named Sahat, and I'm going to share that with you guys here.
My name is MD Sahat. I'm a Rohingya refugee from the world's most largest refugee camp in Cox's Bazaar, Bangladesh. We are a million of Rohingya genocide survivors living here in this crowded camp since 2017. Currently, we are facing very hard situation here in the camp. We are facing many kinds of crises, like humanitarian crisis, education crisis, livelihood crisis, and health crisis. We don't want to live here anymore. We want to go back to our country, Myanmar. So please help us and repatriate us to Myanmar as soon as possible.
So, Tanvir, he says they want to go back to Myanmar, but since the military coup, that doesn't look like it's...
That's almost everyone we speak to in the camp. I mean, for the last 4 years almost, we've been going there almost every month except last year because of pandemic. Everyone wants to really go back. They want to be in their home. all you hear, Bangladesh has a reason to be frustrated. They've been trying to convince the international community to exert pressure on Myanmar to resolve this. A failed attempt of repatriation, and yet the international community essentially is all lip service and diplomatic brinkmanship. No one really came up with a concrete solution, exert pressure on Myanmar. Two countries that has a great deal of leverage is China and India. They even backed out from UN resolution. China could easily put a lot of pressure on Myanmar to resolve this crisis quickly. Yet we see ASEAN had meeting on it, yet nothing happens. Singapore, Japan both have heavy investment in Myanmar. Everybody is reluctant when it comes to really put an exert tangible pressure. I'm not necessarily saying sanction, some kind of tangible pressure and a blueprint and a roadmap that this is how it should work. Provide all the Rohingya said, we want an international security guarantee, maybe presence of UN troops. We want people to guard us. We just won't go there without recognition, without citizenship, without some kind of security. We already know what we went through. And it's absolutely right. And Bangladesh has very good reason to be frustrated after literally 4 years without much help from the international community in resolving this problem. 50% of the people in the camp are children. A lost generation without formal education, without formal skill. What will they do even if they go to another country, let's say as a refugee, or even go back home? They're a lost generation.
Nadia, where's the international community on this? What's the problem? It's been going on for 4 years. Why aren't they exerting more pressure in Myanmar?
I mean, I think the international community has tried in terms of advocacy and lobbying for the kind of rights and dignity that we want to see realized for the Rohingya population in Myanmar. I mean, I fully agree with what Wei Wei said. The moral and legal responsibility for this crisis lies in the acts of crimes against humanity committed against the Rohingya population and acts of genocide. This is where the responsibility lies, and we have to remember that. And I want to underline the point that we, accept and laud and praise the generosity and the compassion shown by Bangladesh. We cannot forget, however, the regional response, the importance of ASEAN, and the failure as well of countries such as Malaysia and Thailand in recent months, especially in the last year. We've seen pushbacks of Rohingya at sea and, failure to help people disembark when they've been drifting at sea for months. I think, though, that the answer to this is not putting people on an island prison in the middle of the Bay of Bengal, especially during a season which is, prone to cyclones and monsoon. And on this, I really push in terms of the urgency of what may happen. You're talking about tidal surges which can reach 6 meters and storm surges which can reach 5 meters. And, it's disingenuous for, the Bangladeshi authorities to say that living conditions are better on Bhasan Char when an evacuation plan that the Bangladeshi government relies on is moving people inland. That's simply not a choice for people on Bhasan Char right now.
No, they would be trapped in the face of a cyclone.
Exactly.
Wait, I want to come to you. I got about a minute left. I want to ask you, what would justice look like in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Bangladesh government has done incredibly well is actually pursuing international legal justice path and cooperating with the International Criminal Court and supporting other pressure at the UN Security UN in general, in terms of developing, in terms of helping the discussions ongoing on the justice and accountability. So what we need is, the Bangladesh to boost up that effort, as well as international community to really come up with the effective actions to hold the perpetrators of genocide and crimes against humanity, this military, accountable by sending them to the ICC and by also coming up with a holistic accountability processes.
Looking for accountability. I know the UN is discussing some resolutions this week about it, so we'll watch what happens there. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Stream.